top story this hour. We decode NDA's vision for India to make the country globally the third largest economy if it gets voted to power again. Versus Congress's promises around jobs and pensions and luring Kisans and Jawans. Is Rahul Gandhi's promise of Jitni Abaadi Utna Haq, alluding to a caste census, resonating with voters? What really is the Congress's vision for the country? To discuss that and more, we'll be joined shortly by two very eminent guests. But first, in fact, the Finance Minister was speaking today at the FICCI Event, reiterating Prime Minister Modi's vision to make India the third largest economy. She also added that the next-gen reforms will be the government's top agenda going forward. Let's listen into what she had to say.
Honourable Prime Minister has already very clearly indicated the third term that he is coming in now after this Lok Sabha elections. He will make sure that India will be from the fifth lifted to the third. And thereafter, of course, you're going to have to do a lot more things to take it forward. And in that, the next generation reforms will certainly be top on the agenda. Several area-specific and generic reforms, systemic reforms have been undertaken. So that trend will continue. I will underline the fact that the reforms will touch on all the factors of production. Be it your land, be it your labor, be it your capital. And I'm not listing items like EV, obviously EV. But we are looking at space, we are looking at artificial intelligence. India wants to touch on levels of innovation, investment, and also policy support. So industry today has so much to speak about. The paths that the Prime Minister is laying for ourselves.
And to discuss this further, I'm now joined by Amitabh Tewari, political commentator and analyst. Along with that, Swaminathan, Aiyar, consulting editor, ET Now. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening to discuss this big issue. Mr. Aiyar, I first want to come to you. The Prime Minister as well, just 3 weeks back, stated that poverty alleviation, boosting development, a capex push is going to be the key priority of the government. In fact, Nirmala Sitharaman, the Finance Minister today as well, alluded to the same goal of Prime Minister Modi. She also said that there will be a push to several emerging sectors like EVs, AI, DPI, and then you have the government, then you have the Congress party really speaking about minimum support prices, scrapping Agniveer scheme, and also talking of a caste census. I want to ask you, as a voter, how do you really compare the two, and if there is a fair comparison between the two?
As a voter, I do not take election promises seriously, and I do not know anybody who takes them seriously, especially when you get into much longer term things like Amritkal by 2047, India will become so big. Okay, it may become so big or not become so big, but the current politicians will all be dead. I will be dead by that time. So, most people go on the basis of performance. It is very easy to make 1,000 promises, and then in practice, we have seen that the slip between cup and lip can be enormous. Rather than make very, very fancy promises, it is better to make modest promises and achieve them. If you remember at the time of the last election, the Congress party offered farmers 72,000 rupees per year, 72,000. Mr. Modi came out with saying, I will give you 6,000. And the people voted for the man who offered 6,000 and not for the person who voted 72,000. Partly because, they don't believe all these promises. You can get more and more fancy. So the important thing is the credibility of the promise. And I would say in any case, the most important thing is performance. How have you performed in the last 5 years is far more important. People are quite uncertain as to what you will achieve further on. Mr. Modi is seen as somebody who is a doer. He gets things achieved. But I do not think a promise on one specific sector or the other is the key. Because frankly, politicians like to assure every single sector. And now in the last election, you will remember Mr. Modi's key promise was, I will have piped water to every household. Have they achieved that? Actually, they have not. But they have done a substantial amount of work. So Modi will not be penalized because he has failed to achieve that particular promise. Overall, there is sufficient action going on The economy is going at 7.3% at a time when the global economy is in very, very deep trouble. These are impressive achievements. So I think the emphasis is going to be how well have you performed. And even if you have not performed on some pledges like the pipe water to every house, you have done enough. And I think this will now inform the going forward strategy. The truth is that the election strategy always is no sector to be forgotten. There will be something for each and every sector. And when you talk about priorities at different places, you will give different priorities because you are tuning it to different audiences. So I would say Mr. Modi basically says, look, this ship is sailing very well in troubled waters. Should I be making enormous changes? No. Should I continue on the path that sector by sector I attempt to make reforms? When I come across major resistance, as in the case of farm bills, I will step back. Otherwise, keep on the same path that you are on. Fundamentally, you are focusing on startups, you are encouraging every sector of the economy, you are making credit more easily available. Your welfare schemes are being done much better than before. Rajiv Gandhi once said that of every 1 rupee to the poor, only 15 paisa reaches and 85% is wasted. Today it's the other way around. 85% reaches and only 15 paisa is wasted. So from this you try to get forward one more. So to me, the general promises of good governance and repeating performance is more important than any particular pledge you may think of in the future.
Right. Right, sir. Right, sir. So you're saying that, we should instead be looking at macros and what the government has delivered as far as the macros are concerned. India still going steady as far as its economic growth is concerned. In comparison with its Western counterparts, there is a lot happening as far as policy and deliverables and inclusion of minorities, inclusion of, in fact, economically weaker sections of society as far as those sectors are concerned. Let me now come to you, Mr. Tewari. The NDA government recently came out with a white paper on the Indian economy as well, and they stated that from the 10th largest economy, now they are the 5th largest economy, the 4th largest economy. But when you really look at Congress, they don't really seem to be having an economic vision, right? And especially when there's so much happening around in sectors like the semiconductor sector, the tech sector, AI sector, but we haven't really heard the Congress party come out with their economic vision.
Yeah, essentially, see, when Sir is talking about it's essentially a matter of performance. Of course, it is performance. However, performance in absolute terms does not mean a lot. That's why the NDA came up with a white paper, and has tried to or attempted to compare its performance with UPA's performance. And then, of course, it's about how we are, as in how the NDA is going to perform in the future. So that's the vision as we're talking about. So it's a matter of two approaches, I would say. So the NDA government, or the BJP-led government, has a top-down approach to economic growth. When I say top-down approach, the focus is on capex. So there has been a 100 lakh crore capex plan which has been rolled out. So it believes that this will have a multiplier effect on the economy. It will create jobs, and the people, when they get jobs, will get incomes, and then a cycle of consumption and demand kicks in. Whereas if you see the Congress government, it is largely currently the policies are centered around a bottom-up approach. That is strengthening the people lying at the bottom of the pyramid in the form of cash doles, income support systems, etc. So that's how the main difference between the two governments is. At a time when a lot of the people are moving from out of poverty to middle class, so this middle class is largely an aspirational class. And as you said, when the Congress or the India bloc talks about caste census and reservations, what it sends a message is that when the NDA government is talking about AI or agrarian reforms or taking the economy to the third spot, somehow the Congress is seen as taking the economy backward rather than forward when it talks about a caste census, reservations, MSPs, etc. So that's the difference between the two approaches. and we'll have to see which approach the voter chooses. In the past 10 years, the economy has been steady, as you've said. And though after COVID, the poor have suffered, but the schemes of the Modi government, wherein the leakages have been minimized, have also provided a balm to the poor people. And that is what may ultimately decide. The beneficiary lot may ultimately decide who is able to form the government in 2024.
Right. Swami sir, let me come to you now and really speak about the employment rate, which has been a sticky issue for the government. The Congress has repeatedly attacked the government on also promising jobs. But is that an issue that is really at this moment mattering? You have earlier spoken about the fact that we should look at the larger picture. But this is something that really impacts people on a daily basis. And second part to my question is that how can the government really navigate as far as the issue of unemployment is concerned?
Sorry, I didn't get the first part.
So I was speaking about the issue of unemployment. That's been a sticky issue for the government. In fact, this is something that the Congress party and opposition leaders have repeatedly attacked the government on. But at this point, is this an issue that's really sticking on with voters, or will this impact? Because you said that the focus has to be on the larger messaging.
Yes. As far as employment is concerned, unemployment has been regarded as a major issue in every single election since 1951. So it is not exactly a new issue. It is a problem and it is nowhere near solution. On the other hand, if you look at the PLFS, the latest data, it does show that unemployment has been falling in the last 5 years. It has also been showing that earlier on, there was a problem of labor participation. The proportion of people of working age saying that they're looking for a job was coming down and down. And pessimists interpreted this as being a very bad sign of people are discouraged. But in the last 4 years, again, participation has increased, especially of women. So I think the BJP will focus on some of these latest data on the employment side, which look encouraging. Beyond that, they will claim that fast economic growth, their emphasis on infrastructure, their emphasis on connectivity, on AI, on startups, on new businesses of every kind, that these will create enough jobs for everybody. In practice, that will not happen. And there is still a huge problem about what do we do with millions and millions of unemployed graduates who think that they are too good for any manual work. But frankly, they aren't good enough to be hired at the officer level. So there are huge problems. But the BJP emphasis, I think, again, will be more of the same. And they will say we are going to create so many more.
Come to you, Mr. Tewari. Now, let me take you back to ET Now's Global Business Summit. Prime Minister Modi was there and he spoke that big decisions will be taken once he gets elected for a third term, and he was pretty sure. But when you look at the Congress party, I mean, you have hurriedly stitched up alliances coming up, and, Nitish Kumar jumping ship, Mamata Banerjee saying that she will go solo. And, they're having a very last minute, very reactive approach to issues. Why do you think that is the case? And why has the Congress party not been able to nip it in the bud, despite the fact that the government has gotten elected twice earlier, the BJP government?
Well, see, the Congress party is clearly facing a leadership issue. At one point of time, or in the earlier years, the Gandhi family used to get votes for the party, and that is how they were able to control the party and take the party forward. However, in the last 10 years, the Gandhi family premium has declined. So the congressmen are not really benefiting from the leadership of the Gandhis. And that's why we have seen that there has been a lot of exodus also from the party to BJP, because many people do not see a bright future of the Congress party or their own future or their own bright future in the party. So they are leaving. Now, when you hurriedly stitch up alliances with parties who have grown at your expense. Let's say the Aam Aadmi Party. The Aam Aadmi Party is in power in 2 states, and in both the states it has dislodged Congress from power. Now we have the Congress parties trying to stitch up alliances with the TMC or the Shiv Sena and the SPs, etc., with whom they have been fighting in the state for decades. So what happens is that this gives a very confusing message or signal to the voters. That's number one. Number two is this alliances is very short term. It is only for a Lok Sabha election and not for the consequent Vidhan Sabha election. So there's no long-term vision of this alliance. So the cadre also sees that while the top leadership have kissed and made up sort of, at the ground, after this Lok Sabha election, they have to fight against each other in the Vidhan Sabha elections. And all of this gives a perception that this alliance has been formed only to dislodge Modi from power. So it has a negative connotation to it. It does not have a positive connotation. Neither there has been, as of today, as you mentioned earlier, a common minimum program as to while there are issues like price rise, unemployment, agri-distress, how is Congress-led alliance going to solve these issues? Because they were also in power in 50 plus years. And as Sir mentioned, if you see all the surveys from 1950 to 2019, price rise, unemployment, corruption, agri-distress, all these are issues across polls. So they have not come up, or they have not yet shown the vision to take India forward or to solve these issues. And even after they do present the vision, they need to communicate it to the voter. So the last mile connectivity and gain credibility, because if we've seen in some elections like the UP or even Bihar, where Tejaswi and Akhilesh did put up a good fight and had some good schemes and promises, but they were not able to earn the trust of the voter. So that's also going to play a major role.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tewari and Swami, sir, for joining us this evening and discussing the big poll promises, the vision of Congress versus BJP's vision tonight on India Tonight. Thanks very much again for joining us this evening. Always a pleasure having you. So, Mr. Swami and, of course, Mr. Tewari over there speaking about the fact that as far as the larger India story is concerned, as far as the larger vision of the BJP is concerned, everything is sailing smoothly. As of now, people are not really looking at very small issues. However, unemployment could be a sticky issue, and of course, the government really needs to work on how it really intends to provide jobs to India's youth. On that note, it's time's up as far as this debate was concerned. But moving on to a quick check at the markets. Well, it was another day of lackluster trade on the Lal Street. Nifty managed to eke out some gains, closing around the 22,200 mark. In fact, TCS and Tata Motors were the top gainers. Hero MotoCorp and Bajaj were the top losers. Sectorally, Realty was the top gainer, followed by IT and Auto. PSU, banks and energy ended the day in the red.